Hey everyone, welcome to another installment of Echo Worm Live. This is a live stream that we try to do every other Thursday around about 4 o'clock Eastern Time. Of course, today looks a little different. If you're here in the live chat, it is 1 o'clock Eastern on a Friday. That is for a variety of reasons. This is a very, very busy time in my life. If you guys weren't aware, I've mentioned it on the channel before. My wife and I are expecting a baby basically any day now, and so our schedule has kind of been a little all over the place. So our next live stream will probably not be in a couple weeks here, but I'll keep you guys posted. It'll probably come either at the end of March or early April. And by that point, I will hopefully and very likely be a father to another kid. So that's very exciting news, but it's also why today is kind of a weird live stream. Hopefully we still get people in the chat. If not, we do have some questions that were sent in advance. So if you're watching after the fact, thank you so much for being a part of this channel and this community. If you want to let me know in the comments or in the live chat where you guys are listening in from, I always love knowing where my listeners are in the world, if that's something that you're interested in sharing. We'll go for about an hour, hour and a half today. If you guys have questions that you haven't asked in advance and want to ask in the chat, I'm always happy to answer anything I'm comfortable answering on screen. And we can talk about whatever you guys like, whether it be the books and properties that we cover on the channel itself, the future of the channel, my own personal projects. I always love talking about those 2 books that I'm working on, as well as just some other various things. I'm going to double check. It looks like my streaming is very low at the moment. Give me 1 sec. I just want the stream health to be as healthy as possible. Okay, looks like we got it back. Perfect. So if you guys want to ask questions in the chat, feel free to do so. Otherwise, we'll start with some of those pre-prepared questions. First one today comes from J.H. Lee, who is asking, how is the chapter I Have the Worst Family Reunion Ever a family reunion? Good question. I had to do some research into this because I couldn't remember exactly what happens in that chapter. That's chapter 9 of Sea of Monsters. It's basically the chapter where they find Luke on the Princess Andromeda. And the question, or the answer to the question, how is it a family reunion, has nothing to do with like Percy's direct family. Like they don't meet any siblings of Poseidon or sorry, kids of Poseidon, half siblings to Percy, beyond the fact that Tyson's there with them. I think it implies the fact that they're all related. And so it's more a reunion with Luke than anything. But Ray asks, why are you giving Ethan Nakamura an accent? I don't believe I did give Ethan Nakamura an accent. If anything, I try to like youth his voice, make his voice sound younger, but I don't remember ever giving Ethan an accent. I can't remember if it ever says where Ethan's even from. Kyledo in the chat says, welcome back to Tylersville. Thank you very much. Let me see if I can find the live chat here. There we go. Madeline McCabe asks, how can you get all your voices to change so quickly? Good question. A lot of practice. I've been doing this now for about a little over 3 years. But even before that, before I started doing the videos, practicing jumping back and forth between accents is something that I've been doing since high school. So it just takes a lot of practice, and I still don't do it very well. I use the example, I'm working on the 3rd Artemis Fowl book right now. It's called The Eternity Code. And there's a scene in that book where you have 4 characters talking back and forth between each other, and one is American, one is Irish, one is a Kiwi, and then the other accent that I've given is a Cockney, or not even a Cockney, but like a London British accent. And so jumping back and forth between all of those was really, really hard. The previous book had me jumping back and forth between Irish and Russian, which was also very hard. So it's just something you practice and get used to. Mason Lade says, what is your favorite accent to do or favorite person to voice? I really like rhotic accents, which is basically any accent that has an R sound in it. It just makes it a little easier, especially when I'm jumping back and forth between American and a British accent with a rhotic kind of accent in it, if that makes any sense. So the ones that I think of are like Hagrid is a West Country accent. So if you think of the geography of England, that's more like the southwest or like even straight west of London. So Hagrid, Irish accents like Mad Eye Moody are a little easier than some of the like the glottal R's like the Scottish accent has. So yeah, I would say Hagrid or Mad Eye Moody probably. Pinetail asks, is Hedge's baby going to be a cloud or a goat? Good question. We actually get an answer to that, don't we? Like, the baby is born. And I don't even remember what the baby looks like. Greek mythology is weird. I try not to think of it too much. I try not to think of the logistics of how that child came into be. But yeah, Greek mythology is weird. Especially when you try to put it into a kid's book context. It just, I don't know. It's very, very odd. Horton hears you says, why do you struggle to pronounce the word vag? I don't. It's a regionalized accent. We don't say vag where I'm from. We also don't say flag or bag. We typically do the short A for everything, and the way that it comes off in my accent is vag. Sometimes I also, if I'm doing another accent on top of my own, sometimes it comes across like I'm making it a longer sound. So at one point I think it sounds like I say vag, but I don't mean to do that. It's just my natural accent. It's vag instead of vague. Mason Lade says, can you say put some clothes on in the Hedge voice? I got to remember how I did it. Put some clothes on, I think was I think it's a Vince McMahon accent is the impression that I was going for. Let's see here. Burning Maze is where we find that out. Yeah, I remember that. Because at the beginning, I'm trying to remember the scene where we find that out. Is it at the arms store, maybe? Flick Street YouTube says, I saw in Season 2 of Percy Jackson that there's an original antagonist, Allison Sims. She's a traitor demigod who wants to rival Luke in terms of loyalty to Kronos. Thoughts on her? I don't really have any thoughts on her because I don't think she's a very fleshed out character. My understanding or my guess as to why they wrote her in was to give Luke a romantic pairing that wasn't Annabeth, because especially like when you think about it, the romantic undertones of Annabeth and Luke's relationship are there, even if they're denied by the end of Luke's life. And I think to kind of avoid that, especially with where they've taken the Annabeth character, they decided to give Luke a counterpart. He doesn't have that in the book, male or female. He just kind of has henchmen. So it's interesting to see it, but I'd probably have to rewatch the series to really feel anything more than just, oh, this is a new character, like I don't really care for. But I think she was acted well. Mason Lead says, thank you, made my day. Happy to do so. Flickster YouTube says, have you listened to the full cast audiobook versions of Harry Potter? No, I have not. Joseph Morrill in the chat saying, hi, Echo, good to see you. Good to see you as well. Thank you very much. I want to give a shout out to Joseph specifically. Joseph has been a longtime supporter of me over on Patreon, which is a perfect plug to show you my Patreon. If you want to join the Patreon, it is $5 a month to join. You get access to everything, including stuff that's not out on YouTube yet. So advanced chapters of, right now we're on Inheritance, the 4th book in the Aragon series. But $5 gets you everything. $8 gets you like downloadable versions of everything. And then I think it's either $10 or $15 gets you on this little chart here. So there's the Credits Club. The Directors Club are the people that really dictate what I do next on the channel. And then above that, for $30 a month, you can join the Book Club. I send you a free book at no extra cost beyond that $30. And those are the people that have joined my book club. And I send a book to every month. So one of those being Joseph Morrill. Joseph, thank you very much for your support. All right, back to the stream. Mason Lade says, what is your favorite Harry Potter book? My favorite Harry Potter book is Half-Blood Prince. Typically, any series that I read, my favorite book is always going to be the second to last one. It's not always the case, but it is very, very usual that the penultimate book in any series is going to be my favorite, and that's true for Harry Potter as well as Percy Jackson. Xpogo Sam says, are you familiar with the Hail Mary project? I don't believe so. Maybe, but you'd probably have to give me more details than just the name. Let's see here. Haya asks, why are there ads on your Percy Jackson videos every 6 or 7 minutes? I don't know. Well, actually, I do know. So YouTube, I do not want to diss YouTube too much, but YouTube has this thing that they do where any video over 100 views is automatically monetized by their system. So they will put ads in the beginning or in the middle of videos that are over 100 views. It's not always the case, but there is usually an automatic trigger with how popular things are. The only issue is if a channel is not monetized for whatever reason, such as my channel is not, then I am not making any money off of those advertisements, and I also can't decline advertisements. So because my channel is not monetized, I can't say no ads if my videos have over 100 views. And so YouTube is basically putting ads on my videos and taking all the money from them without anything going to me. So I don't have any control over it. I'm sorry that that's the case. The only thing that I could possibly do is maybe re-upload some of my more popular videos, which I've already kind of started doing as kind of a safety net for this channel. So you might see me re-uploading old videos. That is just because I'm trying to make them available for you guys without the advertisements. But yeah, we'll see if it works. Project Hail Mary from Andy Weir. Oh, yeah. If it wasn't you, someone has mentioned it before. I've never read it. But Andy Weir is the writer or the author of The Martian. Project Hail Mary. Currently reading it. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Someone brought it up one time. I'm unfamiliar with it beyond just the fact that yes, he's writing a new book or a new project. I don't know that. Yeah. Yeah. YouTube's a lot of fun. It's crazy the things that they can do to people's channels, especially people that like rely on YouTube as their sole source of income. Like people can lose their entire source of income overnight and not be able to get it back ever, or maybe not even be able to hear back from YouTube for like weeks. So people go unemployed all the time on it's crazy. Verdana just did a fantastic. If you're not following the channel Verdana, Verdana, go follow him. He has a fantastic series out that I have been watching for years. Every year he puts out basically 15 videos. Or how do I explain this? He is ranking every Disney video. And there's such in-depth reviews that he's only getting to like 15 per year. And so he's doing it in installments that come out once a year, whatever. But he did just do a video on the state of YouTube and AI content and moderation. If you guys haven't checked it out, please definitely go check it out. Okay, yes, I think we're all on the same page about Project Hail Mary. Franciane Campos says, can you read this series in Portuguese? And the question was actually asked to me in Portuguese. I do not speak Portuguese. I very, very indirectly speak Spanish. And by way of Spanish, I can somewhat understand Italian and Portuguese, but I do not speak Portuguese by any means. I would be terrible at the pronunciations, and I would be very, very... I'd be a very bad choice to read any book, let alone the Percy Jackson series, in its Portuguese translation. So, obrigado for the comment, but I have no idea. Fan of Roblox says, if Percy and Annabeth become gods, would their children be gods too? Good question. The chance of the answer being yes is high, but for that to happen, they would either have to have children with each other or children with other gods. And in that case, there is evidence based on the mythology that doesn't always result in gods being their children. More than likely, especially if they didn't have kids with each other, they would be demigod children or like half-god children, monster type things, as we see in various other mythologies. So, for example, like Dionysus was made into a god, and his children, at least that I know, I don't think he has any children with any other gods, so all of his children would be half god, which is demigods. Kylito Newt says, on your other channel, which is called Here's the Deal, are you planning on doing a Star Wars movie ranking, or have you already done it? Somewhere exists a tier ranking of mine for all of the video, or for all of the Star Wars movies. Right now, I'm currently in the middle of a Star Wars series rewatch, including all of the television series. I'm watching it in order. It will probably take me a few months to finish that, and when I'm done, I'm planning on doing an entire ranking of all of the Star Wars films and TV shows. So it's currently in production. It's just going to take me a while to get through to watching and reviewing all of them, then filming it, and then uploading it, and then contacting your brother to edit it. So, Flick Street YouTube says, on Here's the Deal, I would love for you to do a ranked list of all the relationships in the Camp Half-Blood series. I will absolutely consider it. I have a few videos in my pipeline. I just got done with my James Bond video last night. It's out over on the channel, Here's the Deal. If you look up Here's the Deal James Bond or Here's the Deal Black Mirror would probably be the easiest way to find my other channel. But I do rankings of a whole bunch of stuff. So, yeah, you can check that out. Like I said, the James Bond video just came out this morning. I'm kind of proud of it. Joseph Morrill says, Greek mythology is weird to figure out, and that includes Rick's version, how all the god shenanigans work. Yeah, Greek mythology is a mess. Mythology in general is a mess. That's kind of what separates mythology from religion. Power to 99 says, can you read Camp Jupiter Classified? Camp Jupiter Classified I have already done. I've done every Percy Jackson and Percy Jackson side book except for the Greek Gods and Greek Heroes novels. It's basically Rick Riordan decided to write a history book, and he ended up doing two of them. So one of them is called Percy Jackson's Greek Gods and Percy Jackson's Greek Heroes. The only other one I haven't done... No, I've done all the Percy Jackson ones. I haven't done the Kane Chronicles one, and I haven't done the Magnus Chase 2. There's 2 in Magnus Chase. Mason Lade says, are you watching the Clone Wars in chronological order too, or starting at episode 1 and then continuing? For the sake of my sanity and not trying to bounce around too much, I decided to watch the Clone Wars in release order, which is confusing because they weren't released in chronological order. The production of the Clone Wars was a mess. But yes, I am watching the series of Star Wars in chronological order, but I am watching the Clone Wars from first episode to last episode. Yeah, it's a mess. It's a long project. Let's see here. Pufferfish Guy. We're going to talk about fish in this live stream, aren't we? How are my guys doing? They're doing well. We'll talk about fish later, I promise. I got some new ones and some new details. This is the last time you'll see this tank behind me, by the way. I'm getting a new one set up this afternoon. But, fish aside, do you prefer Magnus Chase or Kane Chronicles? Kane Chronicles by far. I think Kane Chronicles is Rick Riordan's best and most cohesively written series. I also like the characters a lot more, and I think it's better thought out than Magnus Chase. I have a lot of issues with the Magnus Chase series. Rame Taparia says, can you please do Fantastic Beasts and where to find them? I could. So, I don't want to put words into your mouth, but I'm curious, Rame, if you know that Fantastic Beasts isn't really a book. So, the Fantastic Beasts films are not based on any books. Fantastic Beasts, the book, is basically to Harry Potter what the Percy Jackson Ultimate Guide is to Percy Jackson. It is not a readable book. It is a book that is filled with drawings and descriptions of creatures, but it's not a narrative book. None of the characters from the film series appear in the book, except for the fact that the book is written by Newt Scamander. So I could read it, but as an audiobook, it would be boring and very difficult in my household that I will not do dry tanks. I know axolotls live underwater, but what I mean by dry tanks are I won't do any reptiles or animals that aren't completely underwater if they have to be in a tank. So like no snakes, no lizards, that sort of thing. But I do think they're really cool. Can you guys hear me? It's looking like the stream is dropping pretty significantly, and I'm not sure why. I'm going to keep answering questions. You guys tell me if you guys can't hear me. All right, looks like it's coming back here. Okay, Kylito says, if you ever want to give Kent a conversation with another character that likes other racing series, like a debate or something, I'd be willing to give you input on the side of NASCAR or dirt racing. Maybe. You're not the only person who's super into cars that's giving me advice on my car-loving character, which is very interesting to me. Flickstreet YouTube says, the full cast audiobooks of Harry Potter have some great actors in them, including Hugh Laurie as Dumbledore, Simon Pegg as Arthur Weasley, and Matthew McFadyen as Voldemort. I think you'd like it. Maybe. I just don't have a ton of time to check out stuff like that, especially when I have my own audiobooks that I've read. Joseph Morrill says, are we ever going to see another self-published EP from you? I really like what you've made with the one you have made. Currently, my band and I are in talks to record another album, or at least starting to work on one this fall. So we'll see if anything comes out of that. I do apologize. Something's happening with the stream here. I'm trying to figure out why we're dropping so many frames. Okay, let me try to fix something real quick here. Let's go like that. Wi-Fi off there, Wi-Fi off there. You guys can hear me fine? Okay, just ignore the fact that my face isn't really working. Sorry about that. I'm not entirely sure what's going on here. Yes, I think I just answered question about my music. You guys can check it out if you like. I want to say there's... But thank you very much, Joseph. Josie Shepard, I don't think I have read this question yet. Can you read The Death Cure, which is the third book in the Maze Runner series? Yes. I am 18 days away from finishing and after that we will be doing The Death Cure over on Patreon. So if you are not over on Patreon, check it out, and that will be coming up, like I said, middle of March. We'll start The Death Cure over on Patreon. Let's go to a question from D. Griff, who says, out of curiosity, where are you from? You sound American, but sometimes there's an Irish tone to some words. I'm not really sure what the Irish would be unless you're hearing me do an accent on the channel. The best guess I have is I have a pretty northern Midwestern accent, which is heavily influenced by Prairie Canada, and Prairie Canada itself is influenced by the Irish accent because of immigration in the late 1800s, early 1900s. So that history lesson aside for you, the reason my words may sound the way they do is because I have a very Canadian-inspired accent, which has a lot of shared sounds from the Irish accent. Liv says, is there any chance I could suggest you read Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams? You can suggest it. I have no idea when I'm going to get to that. I'm currently working on a ton of different books and different series at the moment, so I can add it to my list, but it is not going to be very high on said list. Question from Jennifer Bishop, who says, why is your Pluto voice so gravelly? It's a Steve... Why is your Pluto voice so gravelly? It's a Steve Coogan impression. So if you guys are familiar with the Percy Jackson films, Steve Coogan played Jackson film. And so basically what I'm doing when I'm reading Hades with the... A couple other people are asking about Death Cure. Yes, Death Cure is going to start here on Patreon. In like literally 18 days. Don't quote me to that 18 number, but it sounds right in my head. I do apologize for the lack of an Aragon chapter last night. It was my wedding anniversary yesterday, so I decided to take the night off. Chapter last night. It was my wedding anniversary yesterday, so I decided to take the night off. I will be doing a double chapter tonight, though, so we should be all caught up to the normal schedule. Newt asks, are you going to be doing any other James Dashner series? Maybe. I don't know that any have been requested, but that is totally a possibility. I've never read anything beyond The Maze Runner, so I'm happy to try it if people are interested. Dakota asks, will you read the Vampire Academy series? Probably. It's been requested quite a bit, and I actually finally bought the first book. So I have never read it, I've never owned it, but I finally own it. So hopefully I can get started sometime soon. Maxwell Melander asks, when is the new Percy Jackson book coming out? So far as I know, or actually, the deadline that Rick Riordan has given himself is 2027. My guess is, if at all possible, they're going to try to get it out this year. I know they're very busy, and by they I mean him and his not production team, but his public relations team or media management team. They're very busy with season 3 of Percy Jackson. Season 3 of Percy Jackson is coming out this year. They're doing a double year season, or a double season year, which is nuts for the modern state of television. And so if not, then my guess would be spring next year. The last few books have all come out in September. So the original prediction was it was going to come out September of 26, but it could come out anytime from now until September of 27 would be my best guess. More people asking about Death Cure. Are We Planters says, have you considered reading the Mortal Instruments novels? Yes, I also just bought the first one of that series. So if you guys haven't read that yet, stay tuned. It is coming, I promise. It has been very popular in requests. Joseph Morrill says, I sure do hope season 3 is good. We'll see. They, like I said, they went into this double season. They produced them together, side by side. So it will probably feel very similar to season 2. And if you liked season 2, then that's a good thing. Talisa Goslin says, you should read Don't Let the Forest In by C.G. Drews. A couple of people have been requesting that one. I'll have to check it out. I'll see if my local Barnes & Noble has it. In which case I'll see how long it is, and maybe I can push it up, because for whatever reason, it's been very popular in the last few weeks in terms of requests. Surin says, are you going to do more Keeper of the Lost Cities? Yes, I just started the second book, which is called Exile. The first one took me a while to do, but I think that's because I didn't really get into it right away. It's a fairly slow start to a book, in my opinion. And so, yes, I'm hoping to do more Keeper of the Lost Cities. The first one seemed to do really well over on Patreon, and it's available for free now for everybody. So if you haven't checked it out yet, it's available on Patreon for free. Keeper of the Lost Cities. Monica Yu asks, do you prefer Harry Potter or Percy Jackson? My personal preference has always been Harry Potter. I grew up with it in a way that I didn't necessarily grow up with Percy Jackson until I was a little older. A lot of my schoolyard days were influenced by Harry Potter. Like, you'd play Harry Potter on the playground. I was a little too old for that by the time that Percy Jackson books came out, or the time I got into them. And I also think Harry Potter is the better written series and the more cohesive series. So, Joseph Morrill says, I actually haven't seen any of the show. Is it good? I hear the show is, a lot of fans either despise it or they think it's a decent representation. The biggest issue with the show, or the biggest issue with Percy Jackson in general right now, is you can't really talk about it without someone getting extremely upset with whatever your opinions are. Percy Jackson in the last few years has turned into the new Star Wars in terms of everybody has their opinions on it, and if you disagree, people flip their lids at you. So, my opinions, I've shared them on my other channel, and I'll share them here. But do know that if you are a huge fan of the TV show, you may not want to listen to me talk for the next minute. The TV show is better than the films in terms of being a better representation of the source material. And Rick Riordan is in the writing room. So everything that they have changed from the books is at the full will of the author, as well as some of it being stuff the author wished he would have rewritten about the series to begin with. Basically, this guy's been sitting on his book for 20 years and regretting some of the decisions he made, and so he is using the TV show to change them. A lot of the characters not only feel or look different from their book counterparts, but they are entirely different characters. The biggest example I can make is Annabeth's character motivations are very, very different than they are in the book. Annabeth, like, all casting things aside, we're not even going to talk about that at all, because the performance is great. But, like, Annabeth is a completely different character from what she is in the book. Her dynamic with Percy is similar, but like I said, all of her character motivations, all of her drive, her relationship with Luke is very different. They've changed her character to a certain degree. They made her British, which is different. But the biggest thing they've changed about her character is the prophecy at the moment in the show, without spoiling anything major for you. The prophecy is not speculative by the characters about having to do with Percy or Thalia. The characters are actively trying to revive Thalia instead of just her revival being an accident, so that they can use her to fulfill the prophecy. It's very weird. There's a lot of changes that I'm not a huge fan of, and it's very condensed. It's a very compact show. And so, as a fan of the books and the pacing of the books and the characters of the books, I am a little let down by the show, but I know some people really, really like it. Kylito says, what did you think of Tantalus in Percy Jackson Season 2? I know I've seen that actor before, but I can't put my finger on it. I'm glad you brought Tantalus up, because every season there has been a character that stands out to me as being very poorly represented. Season 1, it was Hades. I thought the portrayal of... What I mean by poorly portrayed is, and maybe this is just me, I am not a fan of the late millennial awkward comedy delivery style. And, like, basically what they did with Hades in the first season, where they took all the menace away and made him just this awkward, weird guy, they did the exact same thing to Tantalus in Season 2. Like, Hades and Tantalus are, for all purposes, like the same character in the show. They're portrayed virtually the exact same. So I was not a huge fan. He was more of an annoyance than a threat, whereas in the books I felt like he was equally as threatening as he was annoying, and it's disappointing to see that for me. That is my own personal opinion. Flick Street YouTube says, speaking of Season 3 of Percy Jackson, they cast Ming-Na Wen from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Mulan as Hera. They also cast for Apollo and Demeter as well, although I don't know either of the actors. Interesting. Obviously know her from Mulan. I've never seen Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. That after my Star Wars project, that is going to be my next major project, is my Marvel rewatch, including all of the TV shows. Wish me luck. That'll take me a couple years. But interesting. Joseph Morrill says, it sucks that it's turned into new Star Wars. I grew up with the books and read them as they came out. Still think the best stuff Rick has written was Heroes of Olympus. Yes. I think on a quality level, even though the ending is inconsistent, and that's why I have the series as a whole ranked below Kane Chronicles, I don't think any series ever hits the highs of Heroes of Olympus. I think Heroes of Olympus is the best series, like you said, that Rick has ever worked on. I even, like, and it's not just House of Hades. I think there are a significant portion of Mark of Athena is very, very good. And I also think that the first two books have significant moments that are very good. It just sucks that the last book sucks. Sarcastic King Dude says, "Are you going to finish Wings of Fire anytime soon?" I'm currently through 5 chapters of it, so it's coming slowly but surely. It's been requested a few times, but yeah. We'll probably go for about 15 more minutes here if you guys want to keep asking questions in the live chat here. Luke Schumacher asks, "Can you do the Gregor the Overlander series?" Yeah, that's been requested quite a bit. That is the book that has probably been requested the most that I haven't started yet. Gregor the Overlander was the first series that was written by Suzanne Collins, who is better known as the author of The Hunger Games. I've never read it. I have no idea what it's about. I just know that a lot of people really enjoy it, and people know it because it's the author of The Hunger Games. Question from that one guy who asks, "What order should I watch Trials of Apollo?" They should have, or like you could look up like the order they were written in. Trials of Apollo, you should read them after the Percy Jackson senior year adventures, but before. But the order of the books is The Lost Hero, Son of Neptune, Mark of Athena. Why am I listing off Heroes of Olympus books? The first book is called The Hidden Oracle. The second book is called The Dark Prophecy. Third book is called The Burning Maze. Then is The Tyrant's Tomb and The Tower of Nero. Flick Street YouTube says, "Tantalus was more threatening in the book. Plus, his motivations toward the campers and ignoring the camp's attacks were revenge on the campers for the curse their godparents put on him, as I believe." Yeah, it to me, it wasn't ever communicated very effectively in the TV show, and I didn't care for the portrayal. Luke Schumacher asks, "Will there be any more Fablehaven books added?" Yes, I am through about 2 chapters of the 3rd book at the moment. I have a couple books that are coming out before Fablehaven 3, and then we will do Fablehaven 3 released on Patreon and the channel as a whole. Jack Clark asks, "What did you think of A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms?" I am going to be completely honest with you. I am so caught up in my Star Wars rewatch at the moment that I have not had time to watch A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. Now that it's out in full, as soon as I'm done with the Clone Wars, I might put my Star Wars thing on a quick hold, watch Knight of the Seven Kingdoms so I can have opinions on it to talk about, but I have not gotten to it yet. I'm very excited to watch it because I've heard good things, but I'm also very excited for Season 3 of House of the Dragon. I only have like a chapter or 2 left in Fire and Blood, which is the book that House of the Dragon is based off of. That has taken me almost 4 years to complete. It's a 900-page history book with very small text, and I'm almost done. I'm very excited. Reader Divine Rivals says, "Do you enjoy the Divergent books?" Yes, I do. With the caveat that I always have to go in expecting them not to be as good as something like The Hunger Games. There are a lot of things I like about it. I love the romance of it. I love the character interactions in it. But it feels like beyond the main characters, there is kind of a lack of... It feels like you don't know the side characters. And I even felt that way in the films. Like, it is hard for me to remember who the main characters are, the difference between like Will and there are 3 characters in the first book that basically blend together for me, and one of them makes it through the rest of the series alive, and for the life of me I can't differentiate between their names at the moment, and so I think the focus on the main characters is great. The world building is good. As the series progresses, it becomes less good, but there are elements I really like about it. I just think as a whole, it doesn't live up to the expectations that I have for that genre because of something like The Hunger Games. Joseph Morrill says, "I sure do wonder what people thought of Trials of Apollo, especially the 3rd book. It was the best, right?" Said in a sarcastic tone. We all know what happened. Yes. Sarcasm aside, I think the 3rd book is easily the best book in the series. But, yeah, Trials of Apollo is interesting. The first 2 books are, in my opinion, god-awful. The second book especially is one of the most boring books I've ever read. and some of the characters don't really develop the way that I think they should have, but it's fine. Flickstreet YouTube says, I believe that people say Knight of the Seven Kingdoms is more light and funny than Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon. Yes, Knight of the Seven Kingdoms is a comedy. It's based on a novella series that was written by the same author. It's set in the same world, but the tone is completely different. The book is the same way. The tone is very different than the other books, and that's on purpose. Gamgee says, do you hope to have your original stories published one day? Or do you have plans to self-publish? Yes, eventually. I'm currently in talks with a couple different publishing houses. We'll see if it goes anywhere. I don't know. My ideal situation would be to get a book deal that I think would be worth it beyond the platform that I could build for myself, if that makes any sense. Like if someone's going to publish me, but I still have to do the majority of paying for it and the majority of promoting myself, then it's not a deal that I think is worth exploring beyond, like I could pay for the book myself and I could publish it myself without having to go through the hassle of signing with a publisher and that sort of thing. So if I got a book deal that was great, I would love to do that. Gamgee also says, love to see the AI being replaced with art. Yes, I have an official artist. Ren Oshovi is a fantastic drawer and artist. And they have created some character artwork as well as some temporary, potentially permanent official artwork for the Eric Schwabington series. And as soon as I am done focusing on having this new kid, I will be reaching out to them to possibly do some artwork for the Radiation Effect as well. We'll do a few more questions here. Gooberhopper asks, can you do Catcher in the Rye? This is the same answer I give to a lot of those classic books like Steinbeck and basically anything written before the 1950s. Probably not, for the sake of, I mean, you know what is in those books. My channel is not dedicated to that audience. And coming from like the lightheartedness of Percy Jackson and even some of the other stuff I've done, I think it would be a massive shift in my style of reading in what I'd have to do. And I personally am not necessarily comfortable recording myself saying things that are in those books. TK Kim asks, can you do Percy Jackson and the Wrath of the Triple Goddess? I have already done that. I mentioned a couple times during this live stream. I've done every Percy Jackson book. Eric Craig Miles says, since when could Hazel shadow travel? Good question. I noticed that too, because this it shows up in Court of the Dead, the most recent book. Basically, Hazel shadow travels, and as soon as I read that, I was like, when did she learn how to do that? The answer is, apart from that book, it only appears once. And if you're not reading it with the intention to find where she personally shadow travels, basically what happens is in House of Hades, there's a line about how her and Nico shadow travel away from a location. And the way that it's written makes you believe that Nico, because we know he has that power, traveled with Hazel in shadow travel. It never specifies that she has the ability to do so herself. She is never shown ever doing it herself, but she does it in Court of the Dead, and it basically treats it like she's always had this ability. It's very weird. Like, we've never seen her do it before or be specified to have done it before. Kat says, are there really only 3 Magnus Chase books? Yes. Rule of thumb, as of recording, this is the truth. Every Rick Riordan series is 3 books. The Greek ones, or the Greek and Roman ones, are all 5 books, except for the ones that are unfinished. So, as of me recording, all of Rick Riordan's series that have Greek or Roman mythology in it are 5 books, those being the original 5 Percy Jackson books, the Heroes of Olympus books, and Trials of Apollo. And then, like, the Kane Chronicles have 3, and Magnus Chase also has 3. The speculation is that the new series, which do include Greek mythology, those being the Percy Jackson Senior Year Adventures, which currently has 2 books, and the Nico series, which currently has 2 books, will end up only being trilogies, but we'll see what happens. Joseph Morrill says, Rick just doing Rick things again. Man is giving characters plot shenanigans. He you know, they're good books. They're great books. They're not very... It comes across, outside of maybe the original 5, that these books were not always written with a plan. And Rick Riordan has proven on multiple occasions that he doesn't necessarily follow his own lore as obsessively as a writer like George R.R. Martin. Like, George R.R. Martin has a dedicated guy who memorizes his lore. And then when he's writing, he will email this guy and say, hey, does this work? And the guy will say, well, no, you can't do this because here in this very specific paragraph you said that. It's kind of nuts that this guy can do this. But Rick Riordan on multiple occasions has broken his own lore. For example, in separate books, Selena Beauregard's eyes are different colors. And it's never specified that she can do that. It just accidentally changes her eye color. And the reason that's significant specifically for her character and why people notice is because her eye color is what reveals who the spy is in book 5. So the fact that then there's another story about her where her eyes are blue, it's very weird. It completely changes that. There's a number of things like that. Who's the god of old age? There's a god of old age that Percy fights in, I think, Chalice of the Gods, who the first time he appears is female. It's Black Jack first appears as a female, and they actually make a joke about that in one of the books. But it's all over the place, lore-wise. Yeah, I don't know that. If you know the backstory to Percy Jackson was a bedtime story that Rick told to his kids. It was basically, Rick has always had a love for Greek mythology. And so when his kids were little, he created this character that he would tell them about at night. And he'd basically retell Greek myths to his children. It's not Geryon. No, Geryon is the farmer in Tartarus. It's very similar to that. Unless they have the same name and they're spelled differently. Sorry, back to the Percy Jackson thing. But yeah, so basically, when his kids got older then, and he kind of, stopped reading them these stories, he realized there was something he could do with it. And so that's when he published it, and that's where the Percy Jackson series came from, was those bedtime stories. Now I want to look it up, because it's like Garrus, there it is, yeah. They're very similar character names, but when Garrus first appears, it is in The Sun and the Star, and Garrus is a female character. It's mentioned maybe once or twice. Doesn't have any lines, just appears as one of those demons. Yeah, but there's a lot of examples of that. I'll take a few more questions if you guys want to ask them. Otherwise, I think we're going to wrap some stuff up. I have a busy afternoon ahead of me. So, like I said earlier, hopefully I will be back on schedule tonight with 2 chapters of Aragon. We're almost done with Inheritance. I'm going to take a bit of a break from Aragon. I know there is one more book. We will eventually get to that extra book, which is technically not a part of the Inheritance cycle. And so that's why I'm taking the break, is because it's not part of the original series. Then we'll be moving on to The Death Cure. Then we'll be moving on to Twilight. And then we'll be bouncing back and forth between a couple of different series there. So that's what's coming up on Patreon and eventually up on the channel as well. There's some other stuff I'm working on. Fire and Blood, I said, is almost done. I got like a chapter or 2 left of that. Still working on a bunch of other books. It's just slow and sure. And if you guys were curious, in terms of fish stuff, so my 30-gallon will be moving over in this direction off screen and becoming a freshwater tank, housing the fish that I currently have in a 10-gallon freshwater tank that is way too small. Those include 3 mollies, 2 of which used to be in that tank, and I have now adapted from saltwater to freshwater, which mollies can do. I also have a common pleco in there, and if you know anything about common plecostomuses, they will eventually grow to about 2 feet long. Right now, he's about the size of my finger. But he will eventually get 2 feet long, and so he needs something bigger than a 10-gallon tank. My wife really wants pea puffers. They are these freshwater puffer fish that are literally the size of your fingernail. I'm going to put those in the 30-gallon too. And then with the fish in the 30-gallon, I'm going to put them in a 55 for now. Eventually we'll get a 125, which is significantly bigger, and start an official reef tank where we have anemones and corals and really cool things like that, which you will hopefully see behind me the next time we do a live stream. I am going to expand our current fish selection. Right now I have 1 blue tang, the dory fish. Eventually I'm going to get a second one, and hopefully they cohabitate. Sometimes they fight with each other. I'm also going to get a second green chromis. I have one at the moment. You can see him right next to my chin there. I just bought 2 snails today to help clean up the tank. I named them Gary after SpongeBob and Larry after SpongeBob. I got 2 clownfish in there right now. I also have a yellow clown goby. Eventually I'm going to get a second goby, a red ruby dragonette, and some new invertebrates like crabs that I have never been able to keep alive. So that's fish talk for you. It's very exciting. Kylito Newt says, there are some species of plecos that don't grow that big, unless you just wanted a common pleco. Yes, I did want a common pleco. I was well aware of the fact that they can get enormous. I just think the common ones move in a way that none of the others do, and I really like shark movements. Eventually, I would like to get sharks. They would not fit in a tank that would be in the... A shark tank would not fit in this office. I would need a dedicated 200-gallon shark tank, but... yeah, I really like the way that the common plecos move, so I bought one knowing that eventually I'd have to upgrade. Kylito says, any plans on trying to find a panda clownfish? My LFS... I'm going to sound really pretentious using acronyms. My local fish store has some. They're not too expensive. I just don't know if I have the room for another set of clownfish, because they can get fairly territorial. Eventually, I'd like to get more, but I think I'll have to wait until I get a 125. Joseph Morrill says, I was just a big nerd about Greek mythology. Speaking of Greek mythology, have you read the Homer books yet? I am slowly working my way through the Odyssey. The first chapter is available on this channel. Or the first, I think they call it Book 1. So Book 1 of the Odyssey is basically the introduction to the Odyssey. You can find it on this channel if you look in the Odyssey playlist. With that, I think we're going to wrap things up. I hope you guys have a fantastic next month. Feel free to keep leaving questions either on this stream or on the channel or over on Patreon. You can join the Discord if you haven't already. We kind of continue these conversations there, or at least I'd like to. We have a very active chat for The Radiation Effect, which is one of my original books. You guys can find it there on Discord. There's a link in the description below this live stream. Otherwise, you can reach out and yeah, we can have more of these conversations about these books and the future of the channel in the comments section if that's something you're interested in. Next time I see you, I will have a new fish tank behind me, as well as, more than likely, a new child. So wish me luck, and we will hope to see you all very, very soon.